The stars looked different when you could travel between them in minutes instead of years. Commander Veltar pressed her scaled hand against the viewing port of the Stellar Whisper and watched the yellow star grow larger as her ship approached, the third planet in this unremarkable system. "Dropping out of warp now, Commander," announced her navigation officer, Crix. The familiar hum of the warp drive faded to silence, replaced by the gentle thrum of conventional engines. Veltar nodded and moved to her command chair. The bridge around her was a marvel of Zephyrian engineering, smooth curves of biometal that responded to thought, holographic displays that showed information in 3 dimensions, and most importantly, the heavily shielded warp core that made their civilization the masters of the galaxy. "What do we know about these humans?" she asked her science officer, Kixera. The younger Zephyrian pulled up a holographic display showing the blue and green planet ahead of them. "Primitive carbon-based life forms, Commander. They've achieved basic spaceflight and nuclear technology, but they're still confined to their home system. Our scouts estimate they're at least 500 years away from developing any form of faster-than-light travel." Veltar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Zephyrian Confederacy had been exploring the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They had seen dozens of species at this exact stage of development. The pattern was always the same: excitement at first contact, wonder at advanced technology, and then decades of careful guidance until the species was ready to join galactic civilization. "Any signs of aggression?" Veltar asked. "None, Commander. They seem peaceful. Actually, they appear to be quite curious about us. They've been broadcasting mathematical sequences and scientific data since our scout ship made contact last week." That was normal too. Young species always tried to prove their intelligence when they first met their galactic neighbors. It was touching, really, like children trying to impress their parents with finger paintings. "Very well. Begin standard first contact procedures, and make sure all our systems are properly shielded. We don't want to accidentally contaminate their development with our technology." The Stellar Whisper moved toward Earth, its warp signature completely hidden behind 7 layers of quantum encryption and dark matter shielding. The Confederacy had learned long ago that exposing primitive species to advanced technology too quickly could destroy their natural development. Better to guide them slowly, carefully until they were ready. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen floated in the zero gravity of the International Space Station's newest edition, a diplomatic module hastily constructed when the aliens had agreed to meet. Through the reinforced window, she could see the alien ship approaching. It was beautiful in an alien way, all flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. "Remember," she said to her team through the communication system, "act impressed but not overwhelmed. Ask basic questions but not too basic. We want them to see us as intelligent but primitive." Dr. James Rodriguez, floating nearby with his tablet, nodded. "The gravity sensors are already picking up some interesting readings from their ship. Whatever they're using for propulsion, it's affecting space-time in ways we've never seen before." Sarah smiled. The aliens probably thought humans were just another backward species taking their first steps into the galaxy. They had no idea that Earth scientists had been working on theoretical faster-than-light travel for decades. The only thing missing had been proof that it was actually possible. Now floating 50 kilometers away, was that proof? "Dr. Chen," called out Lieutenant Commander Park from the communication station, "they're requesting permission to come aboard." "Granted. And remember, everyone, we're just simple humans meeting our first aliens. Try to look appropriately amazed." The docking was smooth and professional. The alien ship extended a flexible tube that connected perfectly with the human docking port. Moments later, the airlock hissed open and Commander Veltar stepped through. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with scaled blue-green skin and large, intelligent eyes. Her movements were graceful despite the artificial gravity. Behind her came 2 other aliens, presumably her officers. "Greetings," Veltar said in perfect English. Her voice had a musical quality that made the words sound almost like singing. "I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederacy. We come in peace, seeking friendship with your species." Sarah pushed off from the wall and floated forward, stopping herself with practiced ease. "Welcome to our station, Commander. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, representing Earth and humanity. We're honored to meet you. The pleasantries continued for several minutes. The aliens were polite, patient, and clearly following some kind of established protocol for first contact. They asked about human culture, government, and technology. Sarah answered honestly but carefully, making sure to emphasize humanity's peaceful nature and curiosity about the galaxy. Your species shows great promise, Veltar said eventually. In time, perhaps in a few centuries, you may be ready to join the greater galactic community. A few centuries? Sarah asked, trying to sound disappointed rather than amused. That seems like such a long time. Technological development cannot be rushed, Kixara spoke up. Your species has achieved much, but faster than light travel. Requires understanding of forces that take millennia to master. Behind Sarah, Rodriguez was quietly taking readings with his tablet. To the aliens, it probably looked like a primitive recording device. In reality, it was connected to quantum computers hidden throughout the station, analyzing every bit of data they could gather about the alien ship. Could you tell us how you traveled between the stars to reach us? Sarah asked innocently. We've theorized about faster-than-light travel, but we've never seen it in practice. Veltar and her officers exchanged glances. I'm afraid the principles involved are quite complex, the commander said diplomatically. Perhaps one day when your species has developed further. Of course, Sarah said quickly. We understand. We're just curious about the possibilities. The meeting continued for 2 hours. The aliens were friendly but clearly condescending, treating the humans like intelligent children who needed careful guidance. They shared basic information about galactic civilization, the Confederacy, and other species humanity might meet someday. But they said nothing useful about their technology. When the aliens finally returned to their ship, Sarah's team gathered around Rodriguez's tablet. The physicist's eyes were bright with excitement. Did you get anything useful? Sarah asked. More than useful, Rodriguez said. Their ship is generating gravitational anomalies consistent with space-time manipulation. And the energy signatures. Sarah, I think they're actually folding space around their ship. Folding space? Think about it like this. Instead of moving through space, they're bringing their destination closer to them. It's brilliant, and it's exactly what Dr. Kim's team has been working on in Seoul. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. How close are we to understanding it? With conventional technology? Decades, maybe centuries, just like they said. But if we could see their drive in action, watch the space-time distortions in real time. Rodriguez paused. We might be able to figure out the basic principles much faster. Through the station's windows, the alien ship hung motionless against the stars. Inside its heavily shielded hull was the technology that would change everything for humanity. The aliens thought they were safely sharing their presence while keeping their secrets. They had no idea that humans had never been good at accepting limitations. Keep monitoring, Sarah said quietly, and get me a secure line to every physics lab on Earth. If we're going to figure this out, we'll need everyone working together. The first day of humanity's future had begun. 3 days had passed since first contact, and Commander Veltar was pleased with how well the meetings were progressing. The humans were exactly what she had expected, curious, intelligent, but clearly overwhelmed by the reality of galactic civilization. They asked simple questions about star travel and listened with wide eyes when she described the wonders they might see someday. Commander, Kixara said as she entered the bridge, I've been reviewing our cultural exchange data. The humans seem particularly interested in our travel capabilities. Veltar nodded from her command chair. That's normal for species at their development level. They're probably wondering if they'll ever leave their home system. She paused, considering. Perhaps it's time for a demonstration. A demonstration, Commander. Something small and safe. Show them what's possible when they're ready for it. Veltar brought up a star chart on the main display. We could make a short warp jump to their outer asteroid belt, collect some mineral samples as a gift, let them see that faster than light. Travel is real, not just theory. Kixara looked uncertain. Are you sure that's wise? Our protocols recommend minimal technological exposure during first contact. A simple demonstration from a safe distance, Veltar said firmly. Our warp core has 7 layers of encryption and shielding. Even if they had sensors pointed at us, which they don't, they couldn't detect anything useful. And seeing the possibility might inspire their future generations. She opened a communication channel to the human station. Dr. Chen's face appeared on the screen, floating in the station's zero-gravity environment. Dr. Chen, Veltar said warmly, we would like to offer your people a small demonstration of goodwill. We're going to collect some mineral samples from your outer asteroid belt as a gift. You'll be able to observe our ship's capabilities from a safe distance. Sarah's face lit up with excitement that seemed genuine. That would be amazing, Commander. We'd be honored to witness your technology in action. Excellent. We'll begin in 1 hour. Please feel free to observe with whatever instruments you have available. After closing the communication, Veltar turned to her crew. Take us to the asteroid belt. Standard warp jump, minimal power. Let's give these humans something to dream about. On the space station, Sarah Chen was anything but calm. The moment the communication ended, she was moving through the station's corridors with practiced zero-gravity pushes. Rodriguez, she called out as she entered the main laboratory. They're going to demonstrate their warp drive. The physicist looked up from a bank of computers, his eyes wide. When? 1 hour. Get on the emergency channel to every observatory, every physics lab, every gravitational wave detector on Earth and in orbit. We need every sensor we have pointed at that ship when it moves. Rodriguez was already typing furiously. Sol is online, CERN is standing by, and the laser interferometer arrays are ready. What about the quantum computers? Already connected. Dr. Kim's team has been running theoretical models for 3 days straight. Sarah grabbed a handhold as the station rotated slightly. James, this is our chance. If we can capture the real-time data of a working warp drive, we might be able to crack it, Rodriguez finished. Sarah, are you sure about this? If we reverse engineer their technology, this quickly, it'll change everything. Sarah looked out the window at the alien ship. Everything's already changed, James. The question is whether we're going to spend the next 500 years waiting for permission to join the galaxy, or whether we're going to figure out how to get there ourselves. Across Earth's surface, and in orbit around the planet, dozens of facilities came online. Radio telescopes swiveled toward the outer solar system. Gravitational wave detectors calibrated their instruments. Particle accelerators prepared to measure the tiniest changes in spacetime. For the first time in human history, an entire planet's scientific community was working together with a single goal. Commander Veltar was unaware of the massive sensor array now focused on her ship. The Stellar Whisper moved smoothly away from Earth orbit, its conventional engines carrying it to a safe distance for the warp jump. All systems ready, Commander, reported her navigation officer. Warp core is powered and encrypted. Destination coordinates locked. Initiate warp drive, Veltar ordered. The familiar hum filled the bridge as exotic matter flowed through carefully designed channels. Spacetime began to fold around the ship, creating a bubble of warped reality that would carry them faster than light. The stars shifted, reality blurred, and the Stellar Whisper vanished from normal space. 3 light minutes away, every human sensor in the solar system recorded the impossible. At CERN's facility in Switzerland, Dr. Lisa Park watched data streams flood across her screens. Gravitational waves are off the charts. The space-time distortion is creating ripples. We can measure from here. In Seoul, Dr. Kim Min-jun saw something even more interesting. The energy cascade isn't random, he said to his team. Look at these patterns. The gravitational distortions are following a mathematical sequence. On the space station, Rodriguez stared at his tablet in amazement. Sarah, you need to see this. The warp effect isn't just bending space, it's folding it along specific geometric patterns, like origami, but with reality itself. Sarah pushed herself over to look at the data. Numbers and graphs flowed across the screen, showing energy levels and spatial distortions that shouldn't exist according to human physics. But there they were, real and measurable. It's not brute force, she whispered. They're not overpowering spacetime. They're convincing it to fold naturally along existing quantum lines. And look at this, Rodriguez said, highlighting a section of the data. The energy requirements are actually lower than our theoretical models predicted. They're doing this more efficiently than we thought possible. Across the solar system, human scientists were reaching the same conclusion. The alien warp drive wasn't magic. It was advanced engineering based on principles that human physics could understand. 27 minutes later, the stellar whisper reappeared near a large asteroid. The ship's mining beam carved out several samples of rare metals and crystals. Commander Veltar was satisfied with the demonstration. The humans would have seen the ship disappear and reappear, giving them a glimpse of what was possible. What she didn't know was that human scientists had recorded every nanosecond of the warp jump. They had measured the gravitational waves, tracked the energy patterns, and mapped the spacetime distortions. And they were already figuring out how to recreate them. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez said quietly as the alien ship began its return journey, I think we can do this. Do what? Build a warp drive. Not in centuries, in days. We have the theoretical framework, we've seen it work, and we have quantum computers that can model the mathematics. He paused, his voice filled with excitement and fear. We could have a working prototype by the end of the week. Sarah felt the world shift around her, and it had nothing to do with the station's rotation. Humanity was about to take its biggest leap since discovering fire. Make the calls, she said quietly. Get every physicist, every engineer, every quantum computer on Earth working on this, and James, yes? Don't tell the aliens what we're doing, not yet. Below them, Earth began its transformation from a single-planet species to something the galaxy had never seen before. A civilization that could reverse engineer faster than light travel in less time than it took most species to understand what they were looking at. The demonstration was over, but the real show was just beginning. Commander Veltar smiled as she handed the crystalline asteroid samples to Dr. Chen. The human scientist held the alien minerals with obvious wonder, turning them over in her hands to catch the light. These are beautiful, Commander, Sarah said. Our geologists will be fascinated by their structure. A small gift, Veltar replied. Perhaps one day when your people have developed the ability to travel between stars, you can visit the worlds where such crystals form naturally. Sarah nodded enthusiastically. We'd love that. Your demonstration yesterday was incredible. To see your ship simply disappear and reappear so far away. She shook her head in amazement. It must take enormous amounts of energy. Less than you might think, Kixara said proudly. Zephyrian engineering has perfected the process over millennia. What seems impossible to younger species becomes routine with proper understanding. Behind Sarah's impressed expression was a mind racing, with calculations. 27 hours had passed since the alien demonstration, and those hours had been the most productive in human scientific history. While she made polite conversation with the aliens, thousands of scientists across Earth were working on the most ambitious project humanity had ever attempted. We should return to our ship, Veltar said eventually. Tomorrow we'll discuss potential cultural exchanges and perhaps share some basic star charts of your local region. After the aliens left, Sarah immediately contacted Rodriguez in the laboratory. Status report, James. You're not going to believe this, Sarah. Rodriguez's voice was tired but excited. We've cracked the basic principles. The aliens use exotic matter to create stable micro-wormholes, but we think we can achieve the same result using dark energy manipulation. Sarah felt her heart skip. Are you serious? Dead serious. Dr. Kim's team in Seoul identified the key mathematical relationships. Instead of exotic matter, we can use quantum vacuum fluctuations to destabilize space-time in a controlled way. It's like using a different tool to achieve the same result. How different? Completely different approach, same outcome. The aliens fold space using exotic matter particles. We're going to punch holes in reality using dark energy and quantum field manipulation. Sarah laughed despite herself. That sounds terrifying. It is terrifying, but it works, at least in simulation. Rodriguez paused. Sarah, we're actually going to try this. CERN has cleared their main particle accelerator. We're building a prototype. How long? 18 hours for the basic framework. Another day for testing. If our calculations are right, we could have a working warp drive within 72 hours of seeing theirs. Sarah closed her eyes. 72 hours. The aliens thought humanity was centuries away from this technology, and they might achieve it in 3 days. Do it, she said quietly. Deep beneath the Swiss countryside, CERN's particle accelerator hummed with activity unlike anything in its history. The massive underground ring, normally used for smashing particles together to study the fundamental forces of the universe, had been converted into humanity's first warp drive laboratory. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the control room, watching displays that showed readings she would have thought impossible a week ago. Dark energy injection is stable, she reported. Quantum field manipulation is holding within acceptable parameters. Around her, scientists from dozens of countries worked frantically. The usual rivalries and bureaucratic barriers had disappeared, overnight replaced by humanity's greatest collaborative effort. Chinese physicists worked alongside American engineers. Russian mathematicians shared calculations with Indian quantum computer specialists. Field distortion detected, called out Dr. Park from her monitoring station. We're getting space-time curvature consistent with the alien readings. The prototype was crude compared to what they had seen from the stellar whisper. Where the alien ship used elegant biometal curves and exotic matter containment. Humanity's first warp drive was a collection of superconducting magnets, particle accelerators, and quantum computers held together with engineering determination and emergency funding, but it was working. Test object ready for insertion, announced the engineering team. The test object was a small probe about the size of a basketball, equipped with every sensor they could fit inside its hull. Begin warp field generation, Dr. Vasquez ordered. The accelerator ring blazed with energy as exotic particles raced around its 27-kilometer circumference. Dark energy was harvested from quantum vacuum fluctuations and carefully directed into field generators that had been designed and built in less than 48 hours. Space-time began to bend. Warp bubble forming, reported Dr. Park, her voice tight with concentration. The test probe is being isolated from normal space-time. On the screens around the control room, reality twisted. The probe seemed to shimmer and blur as the warp field enveloped it. Then in a burst of exotic radiation it vanished. Silence filled the control room for several seconds. Probe telemetry? Dr. Vasquez asked. Coming in now, replied the communications technician. The probe is reporting successful translation to the target coordinates. Travel time, 1.3 seconds across a distance that should have taken light 11 minutes. Cheers erupted throughout the control room. Scientists hugged each other, laughed, and cried. Humanity had just achieved faster-than-light travel, but the celebration was brief. They still had work to do. Bring the probe back, Dr. Vasquez ordered. We need to test the return journey and make sure our calculations are stable. The return trip was even smoother. The probe reappeared in the accelerator chamber exactly where it had started, its sensors reporting minimal stress from the translation process. Dr. Vasquez picked up her secure phone and dialed the space station. Dr. Chen? This is Elena at CERN. We did it. On the space station, Sarah felt the world change around her. You built a working warp drive? A crude one, but yes. We can move objects faster than light using our own technology. Elena's voice was filled with exhaustion and triumph. It's not pretty and it requires enormous amounts of power, but it works. How long before you can scale it up? For a human-rated vehicle? Give us another day to refine the field equations and build proper safety systems. We're already working on a modified cargo hauler. Sarah looked out the window at the stellar whisper, hanging peacefully in orbit. The aliens had no idea what humanity had accomplished in their shadow. Elena, this is going to change everything. I know. Sarah, what do we do now? Do we tell them? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Earth turned slowly beneath the space station, the planet that had just become the second species in known galactic history to independently develop faster-than-light travel. Not yet, she said finally. Let's see how they react when we show them what we've built. Across Earth, the secret spread through scientific communities like wildfire. Humanity had done the impossible. They had reverse-engineered alien technology and improved upon it using completely different scientific principles. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would need centuries of careful guidance. Instead, they had accidentally provided the final piece of a puzzle that human scientists had been working on for decades. Commander Veltar reviewed the day's cultural exchange reports, pleased with humanity's continued cooperation and appropriate awe. The species showed promise, but they were clearly far from ready for advanced technology. She had no idea that 3,000 kilometers beneath her ship, humans were preparing to test their second-generation warp drive. A drive that would prove more efficient than anything the Zephyrian Confederacy had ever built. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. Commander Veltar was reviewing star charts in her ready room when every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. She rushed through the door to find her crew in controlled panic, their scaled faces pale with shock. "Report!" she barked. "Commander," Kixara said, her voice shaking. "We're detecting 3 warp signatures approaching our position. Unknown vessel configuration." Veltar felt ice form in her stomach. "Unknown vessels. That's impossible. We're the only warp-capable ship in this system." "The signatures are crude, inefficient, but they're definitely faster than light propulsion." Kixara's hands moved frantically over her controls. "Commander, they're dropping out of warp. Now." The main screen flickered to life, showing space around the stellar whisper. 3 objects materialized out of the darkness, and Veltar's world shifted beneath her feet. The ships were clearly human in design. Crude metal hulls welded together in geometric patterns, chemical rocket thrusters, primitive radiation shielding. Everything about them screamed of a species barely capable of interplanetary travel, except they had just used faster-than-light propulsion to appear 50 kilometers from her ship. "This is impossible," whispered her navigation officer, Crix. "The humans were barely capable of orbital flight 4 days ago." Veltar stared at the impossible vessels on her screen. Her mind raced through explanations, each more unlikely than the last. Had another species given the humans warp technology? Had the humans somehow stolen it? Had her own ship's security been compromised? The communication system chimed with an incoming message. Dr. Chen's face appeared on the screen, but she wasn't in the space station anymore. She was in what looked like the bridge of one of the impossible human ships. "Commander Veltar," Sarah said with a warm smile. "Thank you for the inspiration. Your demonstration helped us overcome the final theoretical hurdles in our own warp research." "Your own," Veltar began, then stopped. The words wouldn't form properly. "We've been working on spatial manipulation for decades," Sarah continued, conversationally. "Turns out we just needed to see that it was actually possible. Your warp jump gave us the missing pieces we needed to complete our research." Kixara leaned forward urgently. "Commander, I'm reading their drive signatures. They're not using our technology." "What do you mean?" "The energy patterns are completely different. Where we use exotic matter manipulation, they're somehow using quantum vacuum fluctuations and dark energy harvesting." Kixara's voice rose with disbelief. "Commander, they've developed an entirely different approach to faster-than-light travel." Veltar felt the universe reorganize itself around her. In 3,000 years of galactic exploration, the Zephyrian Confederacy had never encountered anything like this. Species either developed warp technology over millennia like they had, or they received it through careful technology transfer from more advanced civilizations. No species had ever reverse-engineered and improved upon warp technology in 72 hours. "Dr. Chen," Veltar said slowly, "how long have you had this capability?" "About 6 hours for a working prototype," Sarah replied cheerfully. "These ships represent our second-generation design. We've managed to improve efficiency by about 40% over our initial tests. 40% more efficient." Veltar's science officer was running frantic scans of the human vessels, and her readings confirmed the impossible. The crude-looking human ships were achieving stable warp fields with significantly less energy than the stellar whisper required. This is impossible, Crick said quietly. Our technology took 3 millennia to perfect. They've had faster-than-light travel for less than a day. Commander, Kixara called out urgently. We're receiving multiple communications from Confederacy space. Other ships are reporting similar encounters with human vessels. Veltar's legs felt weak. Other encounters? Human ships have appeared in the Altair system near Vega and in the Perseus arm trading routes. They're everywhere, Commander. Somehow in the past few hours, this species has gone from being confined to their home system to having ships across the galaxy. On the communication screen, Sarah's expression grew more serious. Commander, we need to discuss some changes in our relationship. You see, humanity has never been very good at accepting limitations on what we can achieve. Behind Sarah, her bridge crew worked at stations that looked primitive but were clearly functional. The entire vessel hummed with power that felt different from Zephyrian technology. Rawer, more direct, like controlled chaos instead of elegant harmony. We appreciate your cautious approach to technological development, Sarah continued. But humans have always believed that knowledge should be shared freely. We're transmitting our warp drive specifications to any civilization that wants them. Your what? Veltar managed to say. Sharing the technology. Our approach uses materials and energy sources that most spacefaring species already have access to. Unlike exotic matter manipulation, dark energy harvesting can be achieved with relatively basic quantum mechanics. Sarah paused. We thought the galaxy might benefit from having options. Kixara was monitoring communications frequencies, her face growing paler by the moment. Commander, we're receiving transmissions from dozens of species. The humans are broadcasting their warp drive schematics on every communication channel, in known space. The implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Confederacy had maintained their position as the galaxy's primary power through their monopoly on efficient, faster-than-light travel. They were the gatekeepers, deciding which species could access warp technology and when. But humanity had just made that monopoly obsolete. Dr. Chen, Veltar said carefully, perhaps we should discuss this development more thoroughly. The galaxy has certain protocols for the introduction of new technologies. Sarah's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened slightly. With respect, Commander, humanity isn't asking for permission. We're a spacefaring species now, with technology we developed ourselves. We'll be happy to work with the Confederacy as equals, but we won't be managed like children. As equals? Crix whispered. On her screen, Kixara was tracking the spread of human transmissions across the galaxy. Species that had been under Confederacy protection for centuries were suddenly receiving detailed instructions for building their own warp drives. The careful balance of galactic power that had existed for millennia was crumbling in real time. Commander, Sarah said, her voice warm but firm, I hope we can continue to be friends. But you should know that human ships are now stationed in every major system in this part of the galaxy. We're not here as conquerors. We're here as engineers and teachers. Anyone who wants to learn our technology is welcome to it. Veltar realized that everything had changed. The humans hadn't just achieved faster-than-light travel. They had become the most disruptive force the galaxy had seen in recorded history. Dr. Chen, she said quietly, what do you want? The same thing we've always wanted, Commander. To explore, to learn, to meet new people and share knowledge. Sarah's expression softened. We'd like to be part of galactic civilization, but as partners, not students. The communication ended, leaving the bridge of the Stellar Whisper in stunned silence. Around them, space was filled with impossible human ships that had materialized from nothing, carrying technology that shouldn't exist, operated by a species that had refused to accept the limitations the galaxy had placed on them. Commander, Kixara said quietly, what do we do now? Veltar looked at the human ships on her screen, their crude hulls somehow managing to project an air of confident competence. In 4 days, humanity had gone from being a protected developing species to being the most unpredictable power in known space. We adapt, she said finally, and we hope we can keep up. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. The emergency session of the Zephyrian Confederacy High Council, convened in the Great Crystal Dome on their homeworld of Zephys Prime. Representatives from across the galaxy attended via quantum communication, their holographic forms shimmering around the circular chamber. High Chancellor Vexna called the session to order with grim ceremony. Fellow council members, we face an unprecedented crisis. In the span of 4 local days, a species we classified as primitive has not only achieved faster than light travel, but has fundamentally altered the balance of galactic power. Murmurs of distress rippled through the assembled representatives. For 3,000 years, the Confederacy had maintained order through careful control of advanced technology. The revelation that humans had not only bypassed this control, but had improved upon Confederacy technology, was shaking the foundation of their civilization. The humans are calling it open-source warp technology, reported Intelligence Director Zalthek. They're freely distributing complete technical specifications to any species that requests them. 17 civilizations have already successfully tested human warp drives. Chancellor Vexna's scales darkened with stress. 17 civilizations in 4 days. Director, how is this possible? Our own development took millennia. The human approach is fundamentally different from ours, Zalthek explained. Where we manipulate exotic matter, they brute force their way through spacetime using quantum vacuum manipulation. It's crude but effective, and it requires materials that most spacefaring species already possess. In the Perseus trading routes, Captain Veltar was learning this lesson firsthand. Her ship hung in space near what had once been the Confederacy's most important fuel depot, watching in amazement as ships from a dozen different species performed warp jumps using technology they had built in their own shipyards. The crude human design had been adapted and improved by each species. The crystalline Vorthan had grown their warp cores from living crystal. The mechanical Kepri had built distributed drive systems throughout their hull structures. The gaseous ethereals had somehow created warp fields using controlled atmospheric manipulation. Every adaptation was different, but they all worked. Commander, Kixara reported from her science station, I'm detecting 43 active warp signatures in this system alone. 6 months ago, we were the only warp-capable vessel within 10 light years. Veltar nodded grimly. The galaxy had become unrecognizable overnight. Trade routes that had taken the Confederacy centuries to establish were now crowded with ships from species that had never left their home systems before. Ancient territorial boundaries meant nothing when any civilization could build faster-than-light vessels in their own workshops. Incoming transmission, announced her communications officer. It's from Dr. Chen. Sarah's face appeared on the main screen. She was aboard a new vessel, sleeker than the crude ships that had first appeared near Earth. Human engineering was advancing rapidly now that they had working warp technology to experiment with. Commander Veltar, Sarah said warmly, I hope you're adjusting well to the new galaxy. Dr. Chen, Veltar replied carefully. Your people have certainly made their mark on galactic civilization. We try to be helpful. Sarah's smile was genuine but held an edge of steel. I'm calling because we've received some concerning reports from Confederacy space. It seems some of your officials are having trouble accepting the new situation. Veltar felt a chill. What kind of trouble? 3 Confederacy battle groups have moved to blockade systems where human technology transfers are taking place. Your people seem to think they can prevent the spread of warp technology through military force. The image on the screen shifted to show tactical displays. Human ships were positioned throughout key systems, not threatening but clearly present. Their crude appearance was deceptive. Intelligence reports suggested that human warp drives were now operating at efficiency levels that exceeded Confederacy standards. Dr. Chen, Veltar said slowly, surely you understand that rapid technological change can be destabilizing. Oh, we understand perfectly, Sarah replied. That's why we've taken steps to ensure stability. The tactical display expanded, showing the true scope of human deployment across the galaxy. There weren't dozens of human ships, there were thousands. In the 4 days since they had achieved warp travel, humanity had launched the largest exploration and colonization effort in galactic history. Commander, humanity learned something important from our first contact with your people. Sarah continued. We learned that the galaxy is much smaller than we thought, and that isolation is just another limitation to overcome. On Zephyrus Prime, High Chancellor Vexna was receiving similar reports. Human ships had appeared in every major system, every important trade route, every strategic location the Confederacy had spent millennia securing. But they weren't conquering. They were establishing embassies, trade outposts, and technology transfer centers. They're offering to teach our own technology to species we've been protecting for centuries, complained Defense Minister Korthak. The Villani just built their own warp drive using human specifications. The Villani, they were barely capable of orbital mechanics last month. And how many species have accepted human technology? Asked the Chancellor. Intelligence Director Zalthek consulted his reports. 47 confirmed successful implementations, with another 63 species requesting assistance. Chancellor, at this rate, every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy will have independent warp capability within a standard year. The implications were staggering. The Confederacy's entire power structure was based on being the primary source of faster-than-light technology. Without that monopoly, they were just another spacefaring species among hundreds. What of our military response? The Chancellor asked. Defense Minister Korthak's expression was grim. Ineffective. Human ships are faster, more efficient, and appear to be more numerous than our intelligence estimates suggested. Our battle groups are finding themselves outmaneuvered by vessels that look like they were built in industrial workshops. Because they were, Zaltek added. Human manufacturing capability is extraordinary. They're not building ships in traditional shipyards. They're converting their industrial infrastructure to produce warp-capable vessels at unprecedented rates. Back near Earth, Commander Veltar was witnessing this industrial miracle firsthand. Human ships weren't elegant like Confederacy vessels, but they were effective. Standardized hulls, modular components, and mass production techniques had allowed humanity to build a galactic fleet in the time it would take the Confederacy to construct a single capital ship. Dr. Chen, Veltar said, what does humanity want? From the galaxy? The same thing every sentient species wants, Commander. To explore, to grow, to meet new people and learn new things. Sarah paused. The difference is that we've never been willing to wait for permission to pursue those goals. On the screen, the tactical display showed human ships arriving in systems across the galaxy. Each carried the same message: free technology, open knowledge sharing, and an invitation to join a new galactic community based on cooperation rather than control. Your Confederacy has done important work maintaining galactic stability, Sarah continued. But stability built on technological monopoly isn't really stability. It's just control wearing a different name. Veltar realized that she was witnessing the end of everything she had known about galactic civilization. The careful hierarchies, the controlled development, the gradual integration of new species, all of it was being swept away by a species that saw impossible as just another engineering problem to solve. What happens now? Veltar asked. Now we build something better, Sarah said simply. A galaxy where species advance based on their capabilities, not on someone else's permission, where knowledge is shared freely instead of hoarded, where the only limitation on what a civilization can achieve is their own imagination. The transmission ended, leaving Veltar alone with her thoughts. Around her ship, vessels from dozens of species performed warp jumps that would have been impossible a week ago. The galaxy was transforming faster than anyone could track. On Zephyrus Prime, High Chancellor Vexna made the decision that would define the Confederacy's future. Open communications with the human leadership, she ordered. If we cannot stop this revolution, we must join it. The age of controlled galactic development was over. Humanity had shattered the old order not through conquest or force, but through the simple act of sharing knowledge freely with anyone willing to learn. In their first week as a galactic species, humans had taught the galaxy a lesson that would echo through the ages. Never underestimate a species that refuses to accept limitations on what they can achieve. The stars belong to everyone now.